Welcome to the Compost Pile, a podcast where we break down gardening, homesteading, and more. Join your hosts, David Poole and Aaron Barnhill, as they pile up information and break it down so that you can be more successful in the garden. Hey guys, welcome back to the Compost Pile, your source for all things gardening, homesteading, and more. Today I have a special guest, Miss Courtney from Seven Oaks. And we're going to do a question and answer session today. Aaron's still not with us today, so we're going to just talk about some general challenges that you have in your garden at Seven Oaks, and maybe we can come up with some solutions that can help you combat those things.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when you put it out there that you needed, maybe someone to do a podcast this evening, I was like, yes, I have questions.
Heck yeah.
And so anyway, do you just want me to start firing off one?
Yeah.
Right.
What challenges have you been facing lately? I know you guys just had a bunch of work done there, made some more upgrades, and so I'm sure that means more plants, more
plants, and you were part of some of those upgrades, and thanks for that. And but I think for the most part, number one challenge is weed control, and we, like a nut grass that just kind of started planting itself everywhere. And so I think like a dollar weed. So, preen is a thing, but I kind of thought, maybe David would say yay or nay and maybe give me some hints on better.
Pre-emergents are great. What a pre-emergent essentially sterilizes the seeds, so it doesn't kill anything that's actively growing. So that's one thing that a lot of people that they don't understand. They put it out and then they're kind of upset when nothing actually happens, and that's because it's actually sterilizing the next generation of seeds. Mm-hmm. So pre-emergents have to be done multiple times a year. Mm-hmm. You typically will see most people apply them in February, May, and then oftentimes in October to November. And that can be in the yard aspect or it could be in ornamentals, because you really see that's when the majority of your major season change is happening. So things are, in February, they're starting to grow as we're shifting into warmer weather and temperatures are beginning to rise, daylight's getting longer again, and then other things are dying out and they're dropping seeds at the end of their life. So it's kind of a point where you're catching the most things at one time. So preen and pre-emergence, there's a bunch out there. They are great.
What's your favorite?
We typically use Dimension or Barricade. Barricade's more of a lawn pre-emergent, but it can be used in ornamentals. Dimension, it covers some more of the grassy type weeds that become really problematic.
Is nutgrass in there?
No. Nutgrass is really difficult because the pre-emergent doesn't really help. Nutgrass has, as the name implies, it has a small, like pea-sized nut, and it's very, very hard. You can almost cut it in half like a peanut. And whenever you mention that you have nutgrass in there, and then you followed right up and you said you have dollarweed, my first indication is those areas that it's most problematic in could be staying too wet.
Right.
Nutgrass is also known as watergrass, and dollarweed, on the other hand, thrives in wet conditions. It doesn't have to be saturated, but if those areas hold more moisture or they're getting more consistent irrigation than others.
Well, the dollarweed is sitting in the rocks where our the rainoff and the runoff drains to.
Okay.
There's a mesh pipe in there, so it's actually growing in rock.
And that's it. It does, and sometimes that makes it even more challenging because you can't. When you pull it, you can't get those runners.
Yes. And then the nutgrass, actually, that was mostly when we first did a lot of the renovation and the installation where there was some exposed grass and stuff. I mean, it just popped up immediately. I mean, and you could tell because it grows like so much faster than the grass. And so anyway, we've gotten this, the St. Augustine and all that other, grass or whatever to come in and kind of take up space. And it's kind of, whatever, but as far as the others, I guess it is staying moist there, the dollarweed.
Yeah, and so like if you develop like nutgrass or dollarweed like in like a mulched or soil bed, one of the first things I always recommend is like improving the drainage. Gotcha. So like next time you mulch, like maybe work up some of the open areas in the soil. You could add in expanded shell, which is almost like a popped rock. It's very, very lightweight. but it gives you permanent drainage amendments and helps keep some of those soil particles from compacting together. Because when you think about all the rain and such we get, soil gets compacted, clay stays damp for a really, really long time, and it just makes a perfect environment for some of those like wet loving weeds like
so
that.
those two weed preventives, name those again, and do you sell those?
Dimension and Barricade.
Barricade.
I can't say for sure if either of those. Some of them will cover dollarweed because it's a broadleaf, but nutgrass kind of stands out on its own. Your sedges, oftentimes if you have it bad enough to where you need a control product, it's got to be something very specific.
I've been pulling it by hand for now.
Yeah, that's what we do a lot, because you want to try to get like
It just comes out of nowhere.
you want to try to get the nut and the root system, because they'll grow out, and then that's how they multiply so fast, because for every one you get another one develop on the end of the root, and then it's like 1 turns to 5, 25, and then it, in some places it gets out of control, some places it doesn't. So
Yeah. We'll see this spring now that the grass is growing again.
if it gets really, really bad, and you have to treat with something, there's a product called Sedgehammer. It's a little packet that you mix in water, and it's specifically for that particular type of weed, and it does a really good job, but it's very, very slow to work.
I'm okay with slow.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be patient with it, and it can take 12 to 14 days to even yellow. So some people spray it and they're like, oh, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. And I was like, no, it's working. It's just not working as fast as you want it to.
Or you're used to, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Can we move on to the second question?
Yeah.
All right. So in this area, this is just not for me particularly, but it's always been kind of a question in mind. Can we, being that we in this Southeast Texas spray for mosquito control, can we legitimately call any gardening organic if they are spraying those types of pesticides?
I don't think that you could call it organic from if we were searching for some kind of like
organic vegetable garden. I mean, like if you used all the things that make it organic, but because they're spraying for mosquitoes,
I don't think that you can truly call it organic. And right. I'm a firm believer in that. And I think about back when Donna's Farms was running, they practiced organic methodologies, but they didn't call themselves an organic farm. They called themselves a natural farm, and they used organic practices. And I'm really thinking about that. I hate the claim. It's hard to say what is organic. It's when you go to the store and you buy organic produce. There's a lot of things out there that are considered organic that still don't really mold into healthy soil ecosystems and really being as natural as possible. So I like to, try to encourage people to look at it from, I'm doing things naturally. I'm providing as little inputs as possible, and I'm trying to manage these plants and this soil to take care of itself, because you can't be organic when the mosquito plane flies over.
Right.
My garden at home is in my front yard, and I can call and have my name put on the list not to spray in front of my house, but
it's gonna
chemicals drift. There's no way I can for sure say that. And then also I really feel that what's in the air here. There's all kinds of variables here just because of where we are that I feel like it's impractical to call yourself organic.
Good to know.
So I mean, so to me, I'm a natural gardener. And that's my 2 cents on it.
So as a natural gardener, what herbicide pesticides do you use, if any?
I don't use, the only thing that I ever use, and it's very rare, we will use something called BT, which is an organic insecticide that specifically targets worms and caterpillars. And we'll only utilize that if we're getting really, really heavy pressure from that type of insect on a crop, and it's going to be like, hey, we'd really like this. We have, this happens to me with potatoes a lot when I'm growing potatoes in spring, or we're about to plant them coming up in February. I'll get armyworms, and armyworms, it's not like I can go out there and pick off all of them, because the name implies,
there's a lot of them.
There's lots of them, and they're small. But if it's like a tomato worm, if I can go out there and find it and pick it off and just remove it from the environment.
The tomato worms, you mean like the big green nasty looking ones?
Sometimes those, but that's really the only thing we ever spray. and we didn't spray it at all this season. And it's just kind of it's a preference. We try to do everything we can, in our environment by attracting pollinators, predators, having things that are going to attract birds into the environment, frogs, all these other things that are going to be there. Even wasps. That's one of the best ways we get predators for worms. Just like the red paper wasp, they feed on a lot of times worms and caterpillars.
Really?
It's interesting. I saw it on the internet one time. That a wasp could carry off a worm, and then I actually saw it happen in real life, and it was the most mind-blowing thing. And I was like, okay, like creating a diverse environment with flowers and like just having lots of stuff in one space instead of giant blocks of one thing made a huge difference. And so that's really made it to where we don't really have to spray a lot, if at all.
That's good then. And so when you say caterpillars, so would caterpillars that would eventually be butterflies, would they be affected by that?
Yes,
BT?
because BT, whenever you spray it on a plant of any sort, and
anything comes on it,
well, they eat the plant, and it's a bacterium that actually causes their gut to rupture. So it's a really kind of cool thing in a way, but it doesn't know the difference between a good worm and a bad worm.
I see.
And even something like a tomato hornworm, while they can do massive damage on a plant, they actually turn into an incredibly beautiful moth, and that moth might be beneficial for something else. So all those things that out there like that we look at from a negative perspective may be pollinating something else, down the way.
Gotcha.
So we try to not use it, but sometimes it really just comes down to what you want out of your space. So
Agreed. Yeah, we tend to have a really good population of birds, wasp, dragonflies. People ask me all the time, how do we manage mosquitoes? And I'm like, we have, of course, we use some mosquito cells at night when we need to, but we have, right before, dark, we have just a huge, array of dragonflies. Out there just doing their thing, and it's really cool to watch.
I'm sure they're way more prominent out there since you're not in the middle.
Yeah, and I don't really grow a vegetable garden anymore because I haven't had time in the last 5 years. I've been, building a venue, but so I don't use a pesticide anywhere. And so I think, the birds, we've had a Kentucky bluebird. We've had a lot of cardinals.
That's
we
cool.
even have a literal cardinal nest in the chandelier right now. And someone asked if it was an art installation. And I was like, yeah, a cardinal did it. And there was eggs in there and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so anyway, so that's, I'm hoping that I'm keeping a good supply of worms for the birds and apparently the wasps, because they come around quite often.
Yeah. It's kind of,
all of them.
We leave the wasps, and sometimes they're in plants in the garden, but they're not bothering us. We're not bothering them. And we don't really mess with them unless they're
like a nest where you're sitting.
Like if they're under the patio and they're flying by my face while we're just trying to sit, and like the kids running around, that's different, But when they're out amongst the plants and stuff, they're not interested in us. They're like, it's cool to see them fly through and look through herbs and plants that are commonly, and sometimes we see them carry off swallowtail caterpillars, and they're like, oh, well, those are good ones, but it's not my job to
discriminate or tell them who to discriminate.
Nature's designed to kind of take care of itself, so I can't judge.
Yep. Well, and we also have there's a tree in our driveway that has a beehive in it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so what it was that purple plant? You're probably like, oh, I don't even know because it's been so long. But you planted it around the corner of the porch. And it grows real tall, and it's got the purple things on it, and it's like it looks like lavender, but it's not.
God, I have to go back and look at the drawings.
I know.
I don't even remember.
But the bees love that. Like to this day, because we haven't had a cold winter. It's still kind of like
still growing.
Oh yeah, there's still a little bit out there, but anyway, So the bumblebees love that. We'll have to think of that name of that, but it's the best quality of that I've ever seen. It grows, it's like 4 foot tall all year long. And even now it's got a little few dead from the little couple freezes we had, but everything else is just already trying to come back at the bottom. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So this year, we go through a lot of cut flowers, and we usually source those. And then like when there's shows and stuff, I'll go out to the literal my garden and pick like cut roses or cut
Okay.
just little pieces of different plants that I have that have flowers on them. But I am going to be intentional with planting more cut flowers this year, and so I wanted to talk to you about the pros and cons of maybe a raised bed. I know that a raised bed is going to be more accessible. It's just probably easier weed control, and of course the ground. But like, what would you suggest as far as like, string ropes for support versus like a grid netting or some sort, or pros and cons of that, or just a string if necessary? I mean, do you have any opinion about?
So I'm definitely no cut flower expert, but from what I know of cut flowers, growing them on the string, I think that provides you with a couple benefits that would come to mind. Growing it on the string is going to allow you with more intentional spacing. And it's going to allow better airflow because some of the flowers that are used for cut flowers may be susceptible to molds and mildews. So airflow is important,
Yeah.
but also you could get longer stems, sturdier stems with a string support than you might growing them in the ground if you're making arrangements or bouquets when you're setting those out. I definitely think that it'd be easier to weed and maintain because they're kind of supported upright. Because when you grow if you just grow them like open or in a grid and it's covering the soil, you're probably not going to have a ton of weeds because you're getting the flowers growing kind of outward instead of supported. I think those are gonna act kind of like as a living mulch in a sense. They're shading the soil. When sunlight doesn't really hit the soil, you don't get a lot of germination of weeds in those areas. But I think it would be a little more difficult. I think raised bed for sure over in the ground just because of water.
Well, that, and I've tried it in the ground a few years now, and it just gets overran immediately with as soon as you till the ground, it's just overran with the nut grass and everything else. It's just
a lot of those weed seeds and stuff. They're there, but they haven't germinated, and then you disturb the soil. You make the conditions right, and then boom.
Yep.
So it's like I did this to make it better, but now it's worse. Yeah. So I think if I were you, I would do those in a raised bed, just because you're going to have less soil compaction. You're going to be able to put a better soil in there. It'll be easier to maintain, easier to cut. I think everything about it.
And how do you feel about pine straw for like a matting for weed control?
Pine straw is my absolute favorite.
Okay.
It's you go like in northern areas, there's a lot of places where traditional mulch like we use here is not to say it's not a thing, but it's not the commonplace practice. Pine straw is used everywhere. We use it a lot here. I use it specifically in my raised beds because it does allow water and oxygen to easily get through. And one of the things I like about it is it helps whenever I'm growing things that are susceptible to molds, mildews, or maybe disease. Then it helps keep those leaves and flowers and foliage off the soil. And it also helps keep splashing from happening, because a lot of the problems you face whenever you're growing cut flowers or really anything, pathogens and diseases start at the soil. You water and they splash up onto the foliage, and then they work their way up the plant. So that pine straw for me does a really good job of acting as a mulch, helping keep the soil healthy, and then also helping mitigate some of the disease issues that I've encountered with certain plants over the years. And truthfully, it looks awesome.
I think it looks great too.
I
love the brown.
It's brown, and that brown, that shade of brown, that reddish brown has a great contrast against almost any color palette. Flowers look good in it. It's
I think that's what I'm going to do. I saw that Ellis Pottery had some for sale, and I was like, I can go to my dad's and get some of the pines.
We sell pine straw, the rolls of it. Yeah. Because not everybody has pine trees anymore. But it's, you can pick them up and use them. And
I was surprised. I was like, I didn't realize people had to buy pine straw.
Yeah, there's a couple farms in Louisiana. Ours comes from, I think, Florida.
Really?
We truck in a whole
I
load of
need to
like
go harvest some pine
200 or
for
300
y'all.
rolls, and it's not. I'm gonna say it's like it's kind of a sticker shock item when people buy it for the first time, but like one roll of pine straw is the equivalent of like 10 bags of mulch.
What?
So
Out of price tag.
it doesn't look like a lot, and you're like, there's no way. But once you like start fluffing it up
Yeah.
and getting it out there, it goes an incredibly long way. And
I like the idea of that. This year, when I get y'all to come revamp my flower bed in the front, we've had a raccoon or an armadillo doing some things. I'm working with critter control right now.
Yeah.
I've been trapping armadillos for 14 years out there.
I can
That
imagine
sound-
they're terrible.
That sounds really country.
and they make a mess. So.
They do, but I've just kind of come to the point where I was like, I need a little expert help.
Yeah.
And come to find out, he's seen possums and raccoons more than armadillos.
Really?
So anyway, I'm gonna get y'all to come out, and maybe we'll do pine straw this time around.
I think it will look really good.
Yeah, I'm ready to make the switch, and I can go get a bunch from my dad's easily
Cool.
and have it on site for you guys. All right, so I've just got, let's see, one last question. We have time for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so being it's really hot here, and when flowers, get to first part of summer, midsummer, do you recommend, like, even though whatever we're planting calls for full sun, and I kind of know the answer to this, but I also want to get your opinion on it, or what I know it works for my space out there, but do you recommend finding a spot in your yard where you do get maybe 4 to 5 hours of full sun, but you're getting that afternoon shade that's not like getting your plants to scorch?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of my rule of thumb here is, when something says it will take full sun, yes, it needs full sun, which is ideally like 6 to 8 hours a day. But here, full sun is oftentimes a whole different animal. It's you're dealing with humidity, super high temps. So I always try to get people to avoid that late afternoon sun. Most of the time the plants can take from like morning to about 2 o'clock, but that it's like from that 2 or 3 o'clock. You just like, I know my guys feel this in landscaping when we get to summer and we're in like late July, August, and into September. By 3 o'clock, it's the most brutal time of day, and it doesn't get any better until 6, 7 o'clock. You get a slight relief. So I like to try to avoid that late afternoon sun because that's the hottest part, and that's whenever you get the most stress on a plant. And then when you start looking at issues that like those flowers or whatever you're growing might be having, it could be from inconsistent water that's directly related to the sun and the heat. It could be from lack of nutrients. It's like, oh, well, I fed them. But whenever a plant is in direct sun and is in really high heat and it's stressed, it's going to use up more resources quicker. So in turn, the soil becomes depleted faster. And then you have these problems and you're like, oh, well, that's not it. So it basically becomes a catalyst for many other issues. But we don't think about that being the main cause. So I definitely think you're right. Yeah, you want to have somewhere where you can get that morning to like early afternoon sun. And I've come to the conclusion as well that full sun, like our garden at home, we get morning sun. We get the sun goes up, but we have the oaks in the front, so it's a very filtered morning sun. And then in the afternoon, we get just the first really, really hot part shining over the house, and then the trees go over the neighbor's trees, and then we kind of get shade. But even that alone has been enough to qualify as full sun, and I've gotten full harvests out of plants that like I've never grown in that environment, and sometimes I've gotten better harvests and better quality plants because the water utilization, the nutrient usage is more even because the plants are less stressed.
Yes.
So
coffee grounds in your mulch? Coffee grounds in your
compost? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We do that. We put them in the worm bins. Like,
do you use like Avenue X coffee grounds, or is it a certain type?
I do own a coffee shop, so we have so many coffee grounds, so many.
Yeah.
So
I've eggshells. That I just maybe we should do a talk one day on a composting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully hosting my friend Luis from Texas Native
Yes, I'll
Soils
tune in
soon.
for sure.
And he's a soil maker,
Oh, wow.
soil guru. So I'm looking forward to, because I know enough about compost, but like there's a lot to it. So
A lot to it.
yeah,
When to turn it, when not to turn it.
yeah, it's
When can it catch on fire?
yeah.
So anyway, well, I appreciate you taking
Yeah,
my questions
absolutely.
this evening and having me on.
Thanks
been
for
fun.
coming.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for watching. So stay tuned and catch us on the next one.